guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, hi, my name is Jyotsna and welcome to Jyotsna's Bookscapades, where I make videos on books. So if you're remotely interested in books for that matter, please consider watching the videos, liking, sharing, subscribing and things like that, because hopefully you like the work I do on this channel. So this video is my bi-monthly wrap up. I generally don't do like a monthly wrap up these days. I just like do it once in 2 months. So the last video that I did was May and June, and what we are pending to do now is July and August. So let's get right into it. Starting with July 2022, and the first book that I finished in July was Benjamin Bauman's When We Cease to Understand the World, and this has been translated from Spanish to English by this translator. Just putting it here. Basically, this book is very unique in itself. It talks about the coincidences and these kind of scientific discoveries and a lot of things that came about because of some strange situations. And I think this is a very different book from all the other books that I've read this year. Like, it is of course non-fiction, but then it's not like your typical non-fiction. It's more like a non-fiction with a lot of reflection, and I absolutely like that aspect of it a lot. Although I did think that like there were some chapters that were a bit long, I did think that the book did tend to drag a bit in itself. I do feel like it was a good book and I do suggest it. So the way I stumbled upon this book was when it was in the Booker Prize shortlist, the International Booker Prize shortlist last year. This was a crowd favorite. Like, people really wanted to see this book win, and I finally understand why, right? Because like I said, it's very unique. It talks about these strange coincidences of people you know about, or of like things you know about, and how people like invented it. Like, it starts with Albert Einstein and then it goes to some other people, and it also talks about things that have happened because of those coincidences. You get me? I mean, I don't want to divulge much because then I'll just like get into the stories of these people. But if you ask me, yes, this is an interesting book, and then I ended up giving it 4. The next book that I read in this month, that is July, was Call Me By Your Name by Andre Aciman. And let me tell you, I absolutely hated it. The book is well written, but then the book is very problematic in itself. Now, the reason why I wanted to read the book is because I absolutely love the movie. Like, Call Me By Your Name is my top 3 movies of all time, and it's a beautifully directed, beautifully written, and beautifully adapted script in general. And I was curious to see how the book would fare. There's this guy called Elio, and Elio is kind of falling in love with Oliver, and there are a lot of aspects of that love story that are shown in the movie, but the book just makes it like it's an obsessive, like he's just obsessed in a very toxic manner over Oliver, and that's why I really, really hated the book, honestly. The only reason why this book kind of has, I think, 2.5 or 3 stars, to be honest, is because it kind of does go beyond the movie a bit. Like, if you watch the movie or if you've not watched the movie, I do not want to give you spoilers of any kind, but this is something that Andre Aciman says as well, that the book also pans like 10-20 years in the future in order to see, how things are between these two people, right? And I think that's very interesting. I like that part a lot. I got some kind of closure to the way the movie ended. So yeah, I mean, I don't recommend it. Just watch the movie instead. So the next book that I finished was Footprints on Zero Line by Gulzar. And this was a part of my Freedom Project. If you do not know what my Freedom Project is, please check out the description box. What I'm going to do in this video is simply going ahead and giving you one-line reviews of these books. But in that video, I talk about all of these books in detail. So with the Freedom Project, I read this one, and this was like the first book that I finished in it. And this is a collection of poems, short stories written by Gulzar in his like peak years when he used to write for magazines, and he used to write stories, etc. And they have been translated from Hindi to English by Rakshanda Jalil. And to be honest, I liked it. It also had one of my favorite stories called Ravi Par, or Crossing the Ravi, in it. and I do recommend it. It's as simple as that. The next book I finished again was for the Freedom Project, and that's An Era of Darkness by Shashi Tharoor, which talks about the atrocities that the British did when colonizing India for a really long period of time. It's a must read book. It's a good read to understand why colonialism is a very bad thing in general. And it also has these hard hitting facts about how, people think Britishers gifted, democracy to a lot of countries. This kind of breaks that notion down because it talks about why, India was being just ruled by the British for their own benefit and nothing else. Again, I deep dive into my thoughts in the video down below. Do go ahead and check it out. And getting to the last book of July, because this is one book that I was not expecting to read, but I really wanted something very quick, something very fast, because I'd read some heavy books like, Gulzar's and Shashi Tharoor's, and that was My Sister, The Serial Killer by Owen Khan. Braithwaite, I think that's how you pronounce her name. I did Google how to do that. She calls herself Oinkong, so I hope that's like the correct pronunciation as well. Basically, this book is very, very interesting. I really like this book a lot. I ended up giving this book a 4 stars because it talks about these two sisters, and where one of the sisters is actually someone who kills her boyfriends, and the elder sister needs to clean up after her. And it's a story about family dynamics. It's a story about family, murder in general, crime in general, and the lengths that you'll go to protect your family and to protect your blood. Interesting story for sure. And there might be some trigger warnings like murder and crime here, and there's a lot of blood and there's a lot of gory nature in it. But I really like the book, so I think you should read it too. And that being said, we are getting to August now, right? Because timestamps are in the description box. You clicked on the timestamp, and that's why you know you are here. And the first book that I finished in August is actually a part of my Freedom Project, and that is Midnight's Borders by Suchitra Vijay. This particular book that you see here is not really something that I would recommend, because I do have my complaints with the book that I mentioned in the video below. Again, cue to that video. But it's not only an exploration of the Radcliffe line, it's also an exploration of the other borders that India shares with other countries like China. It's a very interesting book for sure, where there are first hand accounts of people who stay in the border region. I want you to take this thing with a pinch of salt, because the author comes from a very liberal space of mind, and you are not going to get a neutral view of the entire situation. So when you are going to I think when you're writing a book, you should be writing a book with the view of the audience, that the audience wants facts, and not add your personal comments and thoughts in a non-fiction book, at least unless it's a memoir. And the next book that I read was again for the Freedom Project, and this is a very interesting one called Boys in Nazi Germany by Roman Hayes. And for me, this book was an eye-opening read, because I did not know much about the times and the life of exile that Bose had in Nazi Germany. It's a very, very interesting life that he had, that he ended up marrying like a German woman as well. It talks about how, Bose's struggles to get the Axis powers, that's Japan, Germany, and Italy, to kind of like him and fight for Indian independence. And his main motto was Indian independence at the end of the day, and he had to tally with a lot of atrocities that they were also inflicting in the name of war on other people. And it talks about that form of dichotomy. Again, the video below is your reference for my in-depth thoughts, but overall I do recommend this book, except that it does read like a proper history textbook. So while we are still on the topic of the Freedom Project, another book that I do want to mention that I finished this month is In the Language of Remembering by Anjal Malhotra. Now, when I had made that video, which is down below, which you are going to watch, of course, after this video is over, it's important to understand that I was still reading the book, and I am talking to you having finished the book. It's a very, very important read. It kind of talks about the identity of, the people who were, or the future generations of the people who were affected by the partition. I really, really feel that it was one of the most intricate reads for me this year, and it was a total 5 for me. Okay, so if you've not read Anshul Malhotra yet, please read her. I absolutely am a fan. And the next book that I finished is a book by Dr. Brian Weiss, which is Messages from the Masters. Now, if you know me or if you know my dark interests, then I am really obsessed with death. Okay, I mean, I'm really obsessed with it, and I think it comes from this fact that I'm really interested in life after death or near death experiences and things like that. And this book I read was because I had read Brian Weiss previously, where he talks about past life regression and the stories of the patients that he's treated of some phobia through past life regression. But this book really did not live up to the expectations, because I just felt that it really sucked. Like it this was just a speech. Okay, it's just that someone's written a book telling you some things that the masters have told you, and it does not mention anything else. It's like a one-sided book, basically. It reads like a self-help book, and I really don't like self-help as a genre. That's just me. It does not have to be you. And this was supposed to be a book about past life regression and the author's experiences with the masters, but it simply turned out to be a self-help read telling you what the masters have told Brian Weiss. Honestly, I was very disappointed in this book. But does this mean I will not read Brian Weiss? No, of course I'll read Brian Weiss in the future. But yeah, for now, this will have to do it. I've read 2 Brian Weiss books and I have to live with it now. This gets me to the last section of the books that I read in August, and that was for the BookTube Prize Finals. Now, the BookTube Prize Finals, the winners will be announced in October, so I am not supposed to discuss any of these books with you at this point of time, but I can at least tell you what books or did I read this month for the prize, right? So the first book that I read was Under a White Sky by Elizabeth Colbert. The second book that I read was A Little Devil in America by Hanif Abdur Rakib. And the third book that I read was How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith. Of course, there will be a detailed video coming up in the future regarding these books, and then over there we will deep dive about these 3 books for sure. And of course, there are 3 more to go, right? Because I'm reading 6 books for the BookTube Prize. And if you do not know what the BookTube Prize is, again, link is in the description box to the BookTube Prize channel. So yeah, that's it. I just wanted to simply make a video summarizing everything that I read in July and August. It's tradition. I have to do it, and I have done it now. So thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in my next one.